So the 12-mark Explain Why question then is on papers 1, 2 and 3. So whether you're doing medicine, whether you're doing crime, whether you're doing migration, or you're doing warfare, you're going to find a 12-mark Explain Why causation question. Paper 2, the depth study, is going to be on your medieval part. So whether you're doing medieval or early modern, it's going to be in there. And paper 3, it's going to be in the early sections. This is going to be question 2. This will always focus on causation. Okay, so it's always an explain why something happened question. Now on the different papers, it might be focusing on different things, but you're looking for the reasons for something, and the high marks available are for your explanation. So about half your paragraph should be explanation, and later on we're going to talk about how you can do that. So whatever paper this is on, this is always a causation question. So you're looking to explain the causes of something. So in your revision, you can go through the specification, and as you can see, I've bullet pointed here all the different areas which could be an explain why question. So you'll see for Russia, I've broken it down into Lenin and Stalin and thought about the bigger issues. And I'll look at later how you can plan these. Now, looking at what the examiner wants is the key thing about being able to use accurate information and give an analytical explanation. So you can learn that and you can prepare that before you begin writing. Our difference in the mark scheme then is how you're getting yourself to the level 4. So everything needs to be centred around the question. So it's talking about an analytical explanation which is given, which is directed consistently at the conceptual focus of the question. So basically you're answering the question and you've got accurate and relevant information that is not telling the whole story, but is precisely selected to address the question that is there. So if you go onto the exam board websites and you look at the past papers, you can look at the examiner's reports. They are filled with examples of people's work that they've pulled out from the different exam board times. So they're not perfect, but they show that they will give top marks for people, even if they're not specifically perfect. They've not got the correct spellings, that kind of thing. But they will give top marks where you can go through and have a read of their responses. What they also have on there is they also have perhaps level 2 responses or level 1 response, and you can compare the two responses and think, okay, well, how can I improve that one to make it up to that level 3 or 4? So that's a really good kind of revision technique or revision activity to do if you're really confident with the subject knowledge, is taking someone's answer and thinking about how can I improve it. Likewise, if you're stuck on a level 3, it's good to look at the level 3 and look at the level 4 and think, well, what is the difference between these two? So it's a really good exercise to do. Here we have then an example of an examiner's report answer. Now they will give you the full answer in the report so you can have a look at it. All I've done is annotate the first paragraph because the person has gone through and done it very systematically. They've done exactly the same structure throughout, and that's what you should aim to do. So you will see they've got 2 bullet points and they must include information of their own. Now the grade 9 student will always have a plan. Okay, so you can see the plan is there at the top, problems in the NEP, fear of something, need to feed and get rid of Bukharin. So that's what this person is going to focus on. So they start then, a good opening is either firstly, secondly, thirdly on the different paragraphs, so you know you've done 3, or one reason why, another reason why, and a finally. That's a good kind of structure to kind of get yourself into the habit of knowing its different points. Then they introduce their point. They use the wording of the question. So one reason why Stalin introduced changes to agriculture was due to economic problems. So I know that this whole paragraph as an examiner is going to be focused upon this. Okay, anything I've underlined in black has specific knowledge. So due to the NEP, there were peasants who were able to get profit out of it. Kulaks, using the specifics. However, this went against communist principles that the Communist Party held. This means that, so this is where they're now starting to do their explanation. It would take away the power that the kulaks had. Stalin needed to enforce collectivization. This would mean that all the profit kulaks gained, they could make no more of, as they had to pool their land into collective farms such as the kolkhoz. In collective farms, everyone would earn the same amount when they provided the food grain that the quota needed. So that's using their specific knowledge. Now, this would mean that, this would mean that, is focusing on consequences. So if you're using are therefore and as a result of structure, those would be your therefores. Right, Stalin introduced changes into agriculture as he felt that the kulaks were gaining too much power. So this is linking back to the question, and wanted to be able to control them. Furthermore, he would gain control over the whole countryside due to the machine tractor stations, which each had secret police. This meant that Stalin could make sure no peasants were disobeying him and he could stay in power. So this is linking back to that bigger reason, the bigger picture, as a result of this. This is gaining and supporting his power. They've selected specific examples, and that wider knowledge is shown here with machine tractor stations, collectivisation, and thinking about the secret police as well. So this candidate carries on in exactly the same way throughout this answer, and you can find these, like I said, in the examiner's reports. So if we're thinking of our own way to develop our responses and make sure that we've got that explanation in, remember half your paragraph needs to be explanation. So start with your point. So here I've got to explain why Stalin introduced the purges in the Soviet Union in the 1930s. So the point is, firstly, Stalin used the assassination of Kirov in December 1934 as an excuse to get rid of his rivals, but pretended he wanted to get rid of threats to the Communist Party power. So I'm linking it with the assassination of Kirov, which is the bullet point, but I'm also linking it with a bigger picture as he's actually using it as an excuse to get rid of his rivals. Then I've taken the specific example. So Stalin had become unpopular with his own party in the countryside with his policy of dekulakization, causing a lot of unrest. This caused Communist Party members to vote Kirov, a popular party boss in Leningrad, so showing my knowledge of him, into position of General Secretary. Stalin hung on to control by having to have a revote, but when Kirov refused to move to Moscow, he was assassinated, because Stalin obviously wanted to keep that closer eye on him. So this is where we're now getting up to that level 4 explanation, because we've done our knowledge, we've kind of used that, now we've got to say the consequence of this. This was only one of the signs party members were against him. Therefore, he realised there were many people questioning his position and that he could lose power. So this is linking back to this idea of getting his rivals, or why he needs to. He had to do something to stop political rivals taking over. As a result of this, he took personal control of the investigation and used this as an excuse to remove counter-revolutionaries who were really his political rivals. There was no definition of a counter-revolutionary. This was whoever Stalin accused. Therefore, he used the events as an excuse to get rid of the threats to his personal power. So, in here we have very specific knowledge. We have selected the accurate information and only relevant information. We've got an explanation which focuses on the question the whole time. So, what is it doing? Why is it threatening him? And that wider range of knowledge as well. So it's talking about Kirov, but it links it to the countryside and why the party members were unhappy with him, and dekulakization as well. So if you're going to think about structure and wanting to learn a structure, like I say, start with the point, maybe use your evidence. You will have evidence peppered in to your consequences, but then think about therefore with the consequences and as a result of this. And that should be the structure of each of the 3 paragraphs. So remember, no introduction, no conclusion needed in a 12 marker, just firstly, secondly, thirdly. The bullet points will often be the best ones for you to be able to answer the question, but you will see that it says that you may use the following in your answer. So if you don't know them, don't get stuck by it, just know that use the ones that you know specifically. So as part of your revision then, what I would do is I would create myself some tables. So I would think about the bigger questions that I had earlier on, breaking up the spec. I would create myself a table, put all the reasons down. Then obviously, hopefully I know the knowledge, so this is just me testing myself. I put in the bullet points, the events. Then I put my consequences, which are going to be my therefores in my answer. And then I put my as a results of as well when I was thinking about it. So I've done one that's the right way across about protecting his personal power. So my knowledge would be Zinoviev, Kamenev and Bukharin were still in the party. In 1932 he wanted write-in shot, but the Politburo refused, so that for Stalin showed that he wasn't that powerful. And in 1934 Kirov obviously challenges his personal power by being elected as General Secretary, so therefore he has him assassinated, allegedly. So my consequences of that are, this is, by doing this he's obviously not removed his major threats to his power, so he is removing them one by one. Of anyone who perhaps might question him, and this is protecting his personal power overall. So it's just like a quick reminder in my revision to think about what I can do. So covering up the economic policies, again, it's showing scapegoats, so the failures aren't specifically linked to him. So it's showing that bigger picture knowledge that can kind of link it back, and therefore should protect his personal power. So think overall with your 12 mark questions, prepare for these in your revision. There's nothing new that's going to come up here, okay? So think about all the different cause questions that there could be, and give yourself tables or give yourself spider diagrams and link up the causes and link the specific knowledge that you're going to use to show those. Then practice writing them up. Go on to your examiner's reports, look at those, look at trying to improve answers, go back to your own answers that you've done, that your teacher has marked for you, and think about, right, okay, how can I move this up to the next level? So maybe use different colours where you're changing, so you're doing your explanation. So think about the therefores and the as a result of being in a different colour. Think about the bigger picture and where you've done that, and maybe annotating your answers overall and trying to improve them. Good luck.